I didn't really have a clear plan to really be a director. I just kind of said some shit, and then my degree was kind of worthless, and so I was like, apply to film school and see what happens, you know. So when I got to film school, I started taking it seriously. I mean, you know, really seriously. I genuinely didn't think I would get into any film school. I had no training. The only film thing I did at Florida was like a crit study class and an experimental film class. That was it.
Well, you're definitely in good company. And Tony, what about you?
Mine was more like linear kind of, which I don't think is necessarily like a good thing. Like I made a whole bunch of like little stop motion movies when I was little, and then that went to like, you know, just like making stupid movies with my friends with like my dad's camcorder and stuff. Went to undergraduate for it, and then like graduated and was just like afraid of the world, so I went to grad school. So he and I were both in, that's where we met. We met in a production course. And then just, so we both went for directing. But our school is always like, everyone goes there to be a director, and they're like, that's great, learn to do something else. So I did a lot of gaffing, he did a lot of sound. And then so we did that for like when we came out for a year. But neither of us were like very good enough at those things to really get like too far, which is kind of like a blessing in disguise a little bit. The thing is just like, you know, like you guys know, like directing is like expensive. You know, making like short films is like unnaturally expensive. But writing's really cheap. You know? So it's like we just wrote a lot together and entered a whole bunch of competitions. And that's how we got into writing first. I think the number one thing I learned in film school is like more can fit in a car than you think. I don't know, I had a pickup truck, so I was like really popular. Let's see. I mean, I definitely wish I didn't care so much in film school, like in terms of like, because ultimately like short films can help you, but I think the pressure to make like the perfect short film as opposed to like do something like weird or actually this is something with the film school we went to a lot too. Sometimes I saw the films people made before they went to school, and they were way more creative and like inventive than the films they made in school. So I think there was a little bit of that, you know, in terms of our school in particular, just really kind of trying to shape a certain type of movie, and kind of all the logistics around it kind of like limited, or just made them more cookie cuttery.
Yeah.
You know. So maybe I wish I had resisted that a little bit more, because all the films I made in film school were like pretty safe.
No, I mean definitely, you know, in terms of, mine was definitely got better. Mine was very weird when I was in, they on YouTube somewhere too. I didn't post them, but they on there. You look at them, they look like shit. But they're very weird and like experimental. And then, you know, I got to USC and started trying to make 30-minute short films in 5 minutes. You know.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, the good thing. I mean, honestly, I feel like y'all already kind of, you know, doing the thing. I would say like USC. The biggest thing, positive thing I would say, taken away from USC is like, just, we got like more out of just like basically just making shorts with our, you know, classmates and shit than we did out of class, you know what I mean? So like in a lot of ways, and to be fair, they like encourage like, oh, you know, you probably gonna get a job from a classmate before you get a job from a faculty member, which is true, funny enough. Turned out to be accurate, you know what I'm saying, in terms of like, you know, get in a position where, you know, one, we got a job from a classmate, how we got on, Creed too. Steve Cable went, you know, he my age, but he graduated before me. I didn't go straight out of college. And so, got my first job from a classmate, and then we hired our classmates on other stuff, and so it's like, you know, when they say like in terms of just building the, just building the people, that in terms of just like community of filmmakers and we're like, all right, whatever, but like, who put me on, you know what I'm saying? And they're like, man, don't worry about us, we ain't putting no shit, That proved to be true though, and I think in terms of like, balance, as far as like boundaries and push, I think most of that shit, I would say, is suggestive, but not necessarily to be taken as canon, you know what I mean? Because for almost everything they told us not to do is somebody we went to school with that didn't do it and succeeded. So, I think it's they're suggestions, but not, I would say, not necessarily rules. You know what I mean? So, taking the pitching thing for granted. I think, for example, I think when we pitched Tyrone, like there's a lot of ways to skin the cat. You know what I mean? So. Our pitch class, they're like, don't pitch nothing over 20 minutes. Like they tell don't tell every detail, but like we actually broke that pitch within the last couple of days, and so we had all the scenes, and so it's like you get into it, you start talking like shit. Like you can't, like once you start with a certain amount of detail, you clearly gotta keep going. So it's like you 15 minutes in, and you're like, all right. So that the inciting incident. So it's like you're not gonna have hyper detailed scene by scene pitch and then like bullet point. It just feels weird when you pitch it. So you kind of gotta roll with it. But I mean, I think more important than that, like even on the pitching, it's just like we had music, we had all kind of shit. We was selling that shit. You know what I'm saying? So like, I think it's not so much like the form of the pitch as it is like your ability to sell it, I mean, how warm the room is, because there's other things that go into it. So a lot of times, like, a class is going to distill it down, assuming all variables are equal, when that's never the case. You know what I'm saying? So if I didn't know nobody, I was cold, I was probably not smart. But if you know the people, or you have warm rooms, or like you're particularly good at like pitching, or, like it's a lot of things that can make an hour-long pitch entertaining. You know what I'm saying? If someone is good at talking, you'll watch a 2-hour podcast of it. If someone's boring, you don't want to listen after like 10 minutes. So it's like, it just kind of depends. And so I think with most of the stuff that they told us, you know what I mean, that was what I would say in terms of being more, I won't say negligent about following to the T. I mean, I think, but most of it, I think, there's definitely like room for rule breaking and almost everything they tell you. I think the only thing they told us that was really proved to be salient is that you'll probably get a job from your classmate.
It was, and like going on like just some like that, like some really like practical advice. Almost like the number one thing I wish I'd left film school with was, or that I've seen will be the most successful coming up, because everyone wants to make features, I assume here, right? Like writer, director, be a department head on a feature. There was always a lot of emphasis to make like a thesis film or come out with a feature script, and like both those are great. But the tough thing is like it's really hard in Hollywood or the industry to get someone to read your script, especially if you have no credits to your name, because the script is 120 pages. That's like, even a fast reader, that's like an hour or whatever. And execs read a ton of stuff. They're reading like, their weekend reads are like 5 or 6 scripts alone, maybe a book thrown in there too. And so that's the problem with just writing a script. The problem with just making a feature is that like, the question, you can make a great feature, wins Sundance or something. The question is like, oh great, okay, what do you have? What's your feature that you have? Sorry, making a short. They ask like, that was a great short, what's your feature you have? So I think the thing I wish I did coming out of school was have a feature and then have a short film that's just like a 5-minute proof of concept of that feature. Like something short, like not like a half an hour, just like 5 to 10 minutes. Because it's more likely that people will watch a short than they'll read a script. That's how, like you mentioned, like our big career break was that Stephen Capel, who went to our school, hired him to write Creed 2, and then I just like wrote it secretly with him. But Cable, he got his first feature because in school he wrote a feature, and then he used the schools, you know, when you're in school, at least first there was like, you could get production insurance, cameras were easier to get, stuff like that. There were student discounts at places. So it's easier to make a short film in school, you know. So and he used that, he made this really good like 7-minute proof of concept. And it was like something that was even more tonal than like plot oriented. But on the strength of that, combined with the script, he got his first movie. And then his second movie was Creed 2. You know, so I think that like, right, that was second. So yeah, so like in terms of like practical, like what I wish I left school with was those two things.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, even like just, we kind of wised up almost a little too late. You know? So I made a proof of concept for like a TV show. And even that like ultimately ended up I got more traction off the proof of concept than any short I did at USC. You know, and it's like, and mind you, the thing that it was for never sold, and nothing ever happened with it. And like, just.
There was a script attached to that.
It was a script attached, but I mean, nothing came with that script. But the fact that it was somewhat of a small little package, you know what I'm saying? A couple of people saw it, and like, you know, one of the people who saw it was a producer on that. Ended up being a producer on Tyrone, and you know, I think like. Is in general like having something that is sellable, like that you can kind of see the steps to, you know, I think just gives you a better chance of coming out of school and like, not even that, like, the reason I say that is because not even, that thing didn't get made, but one of the people who ended up producing it, the person who got Jamie Foxx in the movie, was that I met him because of that proof of concept, you know what I mean? So I think it was you know, even though it wasn't something that ended up getting made like Steve's movie, it was still something that like got me, you know, I got to know a couple of producers. The first script we ever optioned, I met that producer with the same proof of concept, you know, and that movie 10 years later ended up getting made. I didn't direct it, but the movie ended up getting made. And so, yeah, I think like just kind of to that point is like if you know you want to be a director, you know what you want to do, you know, even if it's not the thing you want to direct, I think a lot of times just coming out and having something that's like cohesive that somebody can see, you know, that is easily digestible. Like if they like the short, they're more likely to read the script, you know. So having something that's easily digestible is a you know, a good way to get people who might have otherwise not opened that PDF in the inbox to open it, you know what I mean, if they think it's something interesting.
I mean, just generally, like, we learned so much pitching the projects. Like, we even had a pitch yesterday that we're not the directors or the writers on, but like, in pitching it, we understood it more and the director-writer did. So there's something about like having to explain it to somebody and like pivot off their questions and just like seeing what they react to and what they get bored at, that like you really learn a lot about what your project is.
The scene was it was the midpoint. Someone had thought they thought that it didn't break the glass, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Like originally, like he just killed all the clones. And then I think the person was like, man, I love how the glass didn't break. Like, me too. So, you know, that's such a great idea. It is. You know, we hadn't even read the script yet, so we could write the script. Yeah, but I mean, it's a lot of that, again, is like, people, you can see, you know, like once y'all start like really pitching stuff, you can see when somebody like get excited about an idea. You can see when somebody like won't come out, you know what I mean? Because sometimes it'll be multiple people. You can see if somebody slip a quick text, you know what I'm saying? You can definitely tell when somebody's like leaning in or leaning out. So it's like, it's particularly if you haven't written something. A lot of times you might pitch something, and just because they don't want to read it, or there's a lot of different circumstances that can lead to a pitch. But I think just that conversation and like that interrogation of even just like writing with another person, what I'm saying, like things that make perfect sense to me don't make sense to Tony sometimes. Things that make sense to Tony don't make sense to me. And it's like a lot of times that'll, you have 2-3 people in the room and you're pitching to them and they'll just ask like some off the wall shit and you're like, and it's like they'll ask you, they might find a plot hole that you wasn't thinking about, or like, or they might ask something that's like 50,000 feet that's like thematic, you know what I'm saying? Like, oh, well, how does these 2 characters, you're like, and like usually what happens though is like the reality is like, at least we've been lucky, like you have to like codify something that you have been maybe talking very vaguely about amongst yourselves because you like, plotting it. And when somebody asks you a very specific question, it's like, do you know the material in a way that can come out smooth? You know what I mean? And so like you'll answer the question like, damn, that sounded good. Like it happens all the time.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. You're like, yeah, so this is why this is happening naturally, and like you've never said that before. That makes perfect sense. It's like, damn, I guess it did. I guess that's what the fuck it is. So I think, but then once you said it out loud, it's like, shit will click a lot of times. And so, we going through it, we pitched it to all the studios. And we had 2 rounds of pitches, right? And so we had a round of pitching with no script, and then once we had the script and budget, and they wanted to go get more money, then another round of pitching, right? And so in both rounds of pitching, like, you end up learning kind of just how other people are seeing it in a way that's a little more interactive than just somebody giving you notes. Because they're fundamentally notes, but they're usually like something that somebody's confused by, like when you get notes, it might be, no matter what it is, it'll be pages and pages in all likelihood. And they've had time to try to sound smart, I guess.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And like in real time, like it's a very like raw, like that shit was confused. You know what I mean? And so it really points out the weakest parts of the story.
I also like there's a little bit of like sometimes it's great, like when he said like someone asks a question and you have to like think of the answer, and it helps you codify what maybe you didn't like verbalize before, or it just helps you invent something new. But also like just going back to what he was saying about like just pitching in general, and like the idea of like keeping it like more like fluid and organic. Like I also
love to do.
I mean, yeah, it's like just being protective of it is like a natural instinct, and so you have to kind of give your baby away in a lot of ways to the actor. And it's like they'll have a line reading that we absolutely didn't think that was the way it should sound. It happens all the time. You know what I'm saying? You really got to be like, is this line reading bad, or is it just different from what I thought?
Yeah.
And is it worth the effort of like correcting, you know what I'm saying, in the moment? Sometimes it is, you know what I'm saying? And like each actor is different. They would always say like, don't give a line reading and shit, but like, not really. Like no one would like. I was very worried about the way I gave direction because of the way they teach you in film school. And what you find is like each actor is so different that like they're gonna want you to direct them differently. So it's like Jamie wanted nothing but line reading. I didn't realize it until we were almost done. Cause I was so like, say it like this, like like I was so worried not to do that. And then like at a certain point, he's like, just tell me how the fuck you want me to say it. Say it, and then I'll say it back. And I would say it, and he'd perfectly say it back. And I was like, shit, Negro, that's all fucking. And I was like, oh shit. Because they're just, every actor is so different. And so like, Tiana was more free space. She don't want me to damn near tell her nothing. You know what I'm saying? She's like, I'm like, you just told me don't tell you. John's kind of in the middle, and Jamie's like, tell me where to walk, how many steps, what to say. give me the tone, give me the inflection, just say the shit for me, and I'll say it how you want it. And he will literally do that. And so it's going back to that first question of like, what's preaching dogma, but it's actually a little more malleable, and I think even that, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, when it comes to like, you know, doing no harm and like trusting, like, they always tended to like have better lines than we wrote in the script, or like the improv would be better, or like they're professionals, and so it's, you know, you quickly kind of realize like, okay, as long as I don't just like, I'll be the one fucking it up, you know what I mean, if I do too much, and so as long as I don't do that, I think they'll probably be alright, so.
How is it? But he's being like a little modest, because I think that, I like it's definitely that, but I think it's like you need to make the environment where they're comfortable enough to do that, you know, and you know, so it's kind of like holistic. Like you can tell the actors like, yeah, you can improv, you can go out the lines or whatever, but unless you like make the atmosphere where they feel like comfortable doing that, he did a good job on that. Yeah, on Tyrone.
We also, I can say who it was, but like, every actor wasn't cool. Fortunately, the three were cool, the main three.
Who's the one actor that you know that's not on the three?
It's more actors than just that. Cause they might be thinking like David Allen Greer or some shit, you know, now they weren't all.
Not David Allen Greer.
Not David Allen Greer, but if you could process with elimination, I guess. But, you know, it was one of the other actors was like, we had to turn the music off when he was representing, you know what I'm saying? It's like, because, you know, it's not like what they be used to, you know what I'm saying? It's like a whole different kind of energy, and so it's like, you know, it is reciprocal of like, you know, I give you, you know, some positive energy, and hopefully you give me some positive energy. So we was lucky that the actors was all cool. So, you know, it's like, you could say like made the environment cool, but I mean, again, same environment, and every actor wasn't cool, you know what I'm saying? So I think like we got lucky in a lot of ways that they were real down to earth, you know what I'm saying? I think, you know, the fact that it's, you know, the fact that it's like an original movie helped a little bit in the sense of like, I mean, Jamie had no idea what the movie was about, so it's like, he didn't read the script, you know what I mean? So it's like, there is a level of like, well, if you were doing a sequel or, you know, based on someone's life story, it's like, there's a little bit of understanding that they come with. And this, they were like, what is this shit about? You know what I mean? Like, they kind of had to come to us in a lot of ways. So that helped give us a little bit of authority in the sense of like, if you have a story question, you really can't go to nobody but us, you know what I'm saying? Because it's not based on nothing. And so, you know, that helped, but in general, I think like the actors just naturally being very cool. Like it's not like I did team building exercises with them. They had chemistry, you know what I'm saying? Like you have it or you don't in a lot of ways. So, you know, that's why I said like, I don't really do that much, you know what I'm saying? Like they just happened to be, they got in the room, they started talking, they started laughing and shit. So, oh, this might work, you know what I'm saying? Because they naturally had a good camaraderie. We were just hanging out, you know what I'm saying, before we shot. And so once we got to shooting, you know what I'm saying, that just kind of carried over, and Jamie was real cool about like, it kind of, the tone went with Jamie because he was like the elder statesman. And so as long as Jamie was cool, wasn't nobody really gonna be tripping. So Jamie, generally speaking, it all kind of ebbed and flowed. Like, okay, the OG is laughing, joking, chilling, like not tripping about when things go wrong. And so mostly people kind of, the cast in particular kind of followed his lead on that. And so, I continue to for shit like that.
Sort of merge.
I mean, I think from the beginning, like, it was always the idea of like it was always a mystery movie to us, and it was the idea of like a bootleg Scooby-Doo movie. That was sort of the kernel of the idea. So they were kind of intertwined from the beginning. Like it was always supposed to be these like archetypal characters that like Juel put it this way, from like art school background, like characters that can pass the silhouette test, both like visually and just like personality wise. So yeah, I mean, I think it was like part and parcel with the idea.
I think the blaxploitation got stronger in terms of like the patina of blaxploitation got like stronger in terms of relative to other genres as it got into post. So like when we knew it was gonna be a film scan back, we knew it was gonna have a certain like aesthetic visually. And so that was always part of it. When we saw like I really like the music goes a long way to making it feel like that. And you know, we had a more like kind of rat-a-tat meets Willie Hutch kind of like 80s John Carpenter synthwave kind of shit meets like, you know, the stylistics or like, you know, Earth, Wind and Fire. Like we had those two blended together, and like what happened was when we did the scan back, the pieces that were like more, it was more like the score was supposed to just like transform over the movie. It's supposed to start like really like on some funk, Bootsy Collins shit, and then as you got deeper in the movie, like somehow it became dry. Like that was kind of the 50,000 feet like idea. And what ended up happening was like a lot of the score cues, once we did the film scan back, because we shot it digital, and then we did the film scan back, so we printed it to film, the last part of the process. This is what Batman did, this is what Doom did. So like, you know, one of the early movies to kind of really lean into. It's only like a couple of years that they've really been doing film scanbacks like that, and then like studios have been leaning into it. You know, Guava Island. I don't know if anybody ever heard of that, but they did that. You know, you fuck with me.
Yeah.
Somebody fuck with me. But and so Guava Island did that, and once we saw, because we picked a super like chunky, like grainy stock, and once we saw, you couldn't really, that was like one of the last things we did, because we had to finish all the effects before we could do the scan back. And long story, we had 2 posts. And so we got lucky in the sense of like, we saw when we did the final mix, it was the first time we saw on the big screen with the actual film scan back, and you see the grain, and you see just kind of how it turned out with all of the sound design, because everything wasn't finished yet. Some of the musical pieces, it's like, you know what I'm saying? Like, because they felt different, because we've been watching it digital this whole time, you know. And so once we had scored it all, we didn't have the scan back yet, so we had to score it to digital. It felt fine, and then once I saw the scan back, I was like, damn. All of the pieces that are really, really leaning into that blaxploitation, most of those I like more. And so we really were a little bit more judicious because post got reopened. We had to go recut not even fully recut it, but recut the movie. We were able to redo a lot of the score. And so once we did that, it started to feel more like a blaxploitation movie. And then it was like, oh fuck it, we're here now, so let's they just leaned in.
In the 1930s, the 1930s, there was the simplest.
I'm glad you said just easy, yeah.
It's
so good.
Sorry, my fault, my fault.
You know what I'm saying? But like, the idea didn't come to try to be like a modern, like retelling of the syphilis experience. And that's not where the idea came from. I mean, the parallels are obvious, and people, you know, multiple different people pointed it out. Cause like by the time you get the post, like those would have been, you know, I mean, all of the, I guess like, you know, things that would have been callbacks to that would have already been kind of sorted with your production design. Like by the time you know what I mean? So by the time you're in post, it's like, in some way, you know, we were aware of it before that, but if we had just become aware of that parallel in post, it would have been too late to really kind of turn that into something, if that makes sense. You know, but I think people ask that question a lot, and it was not really like in the forefront. It was more just like people are going to see the parallel naturally, but you know, it's not not necessarily a bad thing, so we just kind of roll with it.
We're all like huddling with the producers, like trying to figure out who we can put in this role, and it like slowly started to dawn on me. It has to be Juel. He really didn't want it to happen, but it was perfect.
Tony's directed the last scene.
That's awesome. So they didn't slap a little afro on you and put you in?
Our stunt coordinator, like, dressed up as Yo-Yo for a shot.
No way.
White guy. White guy. You can see him, but you just don't realize this. Because when they go to a grandma's house and like, because like even like when the car parks in the driveway and like the beginning of Act 2, it's like if you really pay close attention, the wig is way too big. And it's like it's dark enough that you can't tell it's a white guy. It's like
Because what we basically did is like we submitted to not necessarily like film festivals like we making shorts, but like script competitions and fellowship competitions. Like all the studios have a lot of them have fellowship programs, and there's just a lot. There's a lot of just script writing competitions and stuff, and so at a lot of those competitions they ask for something specific, like a half-hour comedy, you know, or like a genre film or something. And so we just wrote whatever the competition demanded. And I think that was like, in hindsight, that was really useful for like two reasons. One is that like, it was like reps in the gym, you know, it's like you're constantly writing and constantly writing something different. So that was really good. The other thing is, and this is like advice that we talk to like students or something we give, is that I think there's this like tendency to believe that like you have this one story that's like it's so personal to you, and it's like it's gonna be your thing that you put out into the world. And a lot of people have stories like that, and they tend to spend years on that one story, you know, like trying to get it right, you know, constantly going back to it and stuff. And there's value in that, and like having that like one thing you really love. But I think especially starting out, there's way more about like quantity has its own sort of quality to it, you know, and that's what those competitions gave us. They gave us the excuse to make a ton of scripts. Like we wrote like something like 3 or 4 scripts within 3 or 4 months, you know, and that because the business is so subjective, you might like spend years writing this like perfect thing, and you're a Slumdog Millionaire, it's like the best script ever. You could get it, and it's so hard to get an exec to read your script. They could finally read it and be like, you know, I'm more like a horror person. You know, it might not, the script could be objectively Casablanca, but if it's not being read by someone that likes Casablanca, it doesn't matter. So having a ton of scripts allows you to send people stuff that's catered to them. So for those two, so I don't think we ever consciously said like, oh, superhero movies are big right now, let's write a superhero movie. Like we always did we always did find a way to like what we were writing, but we let the competitions kind of dictate the sphere we were writing in.
I mean, that ended up, you know, going back to the quantity, like kind of leading to like writing better stuff. I mean, I definitely like writing genres that we hadn't at that point and never written. You know, I mean, I think you definitely, I mean, if you're not someone who like automatically knows like I want to tell horror movies, period, like in which case you fucking write horror movies, you know what I'm saying? But like,
so you're the luckiest person in the world.
Yeah, if you're not like convinced of like a specific thing that you want to do, like I think there's a lot of value in writing things that seem very uncomfortable and like seem outside your genres of choice. You know what I'm saying? I think you rom-com shit, like dance, you know what I mean? Like all these different prompts and things that like I wouldn't have never imagined like one day wanting to direct, but we just like wrote them for different prompts and stuff like that. And they almost always like give you like different insight into like problem solving, like when you're writing. So like you write 4 scripts in a row and they all different genres, you would be surprised at how much they inform each other. You know what I'm saying? And so I think like, you know, we always end up like, you end up making like a Rolodex in your head of like, ways you got stuck writing the script, how you got around it, and you end up like drawing on things you did to fix a comedy when you're working on a drama, or vice versa, you know. And so the just general like weightlifting of writing a bunch of scripts in like a compressed period of time, you know what I mean? It's like you get so much better so fast, you know what I'm saying? I think like, have we stayed in a similar kind of genre box, I think the progress would have been slower, and at least in our case, right? And so you would have made progress towards that genre, but I think to put a point when you said like, you just don't know what people are gonna like, so you know, you wanna have, you know, as many options as you can get, you know, in terms of, because things that we was like, that's whatever, and then someone's like, yo, what is this? Yeah, so that's how we ended up like getting approached to write these random things that seem so disparate, you know what I'm saying? And like, you know, in terms of quality of the movie notwithstanding, like Space Jam, the way we got to Space Jam was very different than the way we got to Creed. You know what I'm saying? Like, one of those movies, I think pretty good, and one I don't, but some people knew us as comedy writers, some people knew us as drama writers. You know what I'm saying? So it's like some people have only ever read the Sundance short script that we had, you know what I mean? Like that's the indie drama, just people in rooms talking kind of script. Some people read a superhero spec that we did. Some people read, you know what I'm saying, a sports movie. And so you end up like having different people gravitate to different things because you have them, you know what I'm saying? And so strangely, you know what I mean, like it's something that you might not even think twice about, might be someone's favorite among the stuff you've read.
Yeah, and to like kind of like clarify what he's saying, like a lot of like writing work, especially like starting out, it's great if you write a script and they're like, you want to make this script. I think that's like kind of relatively rare. Like the thing that writing as a job is mainly like gig work, right? So it's like rewriting or punch-ups or like second drafts, stuff like that. So that's the sort of stuff that you write a script, they may not want to make that script, but in that script you had a really great, you know,
comedic voice.
Yeah, comedic voice or whatever. So they keep that in mind for when they have a script they are developing. They need someone to come in and like punch up the comedy, you know. So that's also just the value of having a lot of scripts, is that it's not even just the fact that like you have a whole bunch of potential movies. It's that you're showcasing your various skills that then they'll employ later.
You're more likely to get called for, you know, a rewrite job. But like our first thing we got was, the first thing we ever got paid to write by a place was a British dry dance movie where a dude hears music and it makes him have seizures, but the seizures look like dancing.
It never got me.
But we really like that script. but that job came from a comedic leaning sample. You know what I'm saying? And it was like, oh, you know, it was well under scale. You know what I mean? But like, someone reads it, they like it. It's like 9 times 10 they don't want to make it know it. But like, you know, they read 5 scripts. It's like, oh, well, keep them in mind when we need X, Y, Z. You know what I mean? So you got a lot of people keeping you in mind for a lot of X, Y, Z's. It's really in the beginning, the name of the game in terms of trying to, for anyone who's interested in screenwriting in particular, you know, that's really the name of the game, right? Like someone reading a sample and connecting to something, and it's like this person, because they compartmentalize like that, right? So that especially the more expensive the movie gets, the more compartmentalization happens, right? So they'll bring somebody in to rewrite a character. Like we don't do nothing. We try to get this actor. This happened. This is one of the jobs that we worked on.
Best gig we ever had.
Best gig we ever had. Who knows the movie will ever come out? I think it will be coming out. It's Borderlands, but like, we're not credited, but we just did one pass. Many writers, you know, but our one pass was they wanted to get Kevin Hart in the movie. So it was like, we go work on this one character, and that's all we want. You know, we make it for 1 week, You write one character, and they return in 2 weeks, and they end up doing 2 weeks rewriting this one character, and they'll go to some other person and say, hey, we just want the jokes to be funny. That's all you gotta do. They'll pay you a lot of money, more like per day average than you would pay like directing a movie. Believe it or not, like, you know, if you just did the per day average, best job in Hollywood is to get to the place where you can do weekly rewrites. You know, like Aaron Sorkin makes like $500,000 a week or some shit, like it's crazy, right? Like 1 week, people get 200, 250, 300, $500,000 to the super high end for like a week, right? Do something hyper specific, and that's a side effect of like reading scripts and saying like this person has a knack for this, and they'll pay you for just the thing you have the knack for. As you get to certain like tiers of budget.
Yeah, I'll even say like, again, it's like Space Jam 2, quality notwithstanding. Like, we got that job because we pitched Tyrone, and when we pitched Tyrone, we literally it was like arts and crafts. Like we got a tri-board from CBS, and we like stuck all the note cards on it, right? And we organized our scripts with like the 8 sequences, so there were like 8 very clearly defined columns. And the people that saw that, they ultimately didn't get Tyrone, but like when Space Jam came around, they wanted people that like knew structure, because they had a writer that they liked, but and they wanted
treatment.
They had a treatment and everything, and they wanted like, okay, let's put like some structure on it. So like basically just on the basis of this arts and crafts board, we got this studio movie. So it's like everyone always like keeps you in mind, even if you don't get that one thing. And there's not to say that like it's not even, because it does kind of suck to think like I'm only writing a script just to like get an unrelated job, you know. But the thing is like there's no shelf life on scripts, you know. Yeah, exactly. Like a script he wrote in school, years later, ended up becoming a movie with neither of us directing, someone else directing, but like, you know, that was definitely a movie.
10 years later. Yeah,
it was definitely a script that like helped us get other jobs along the way, and just later came back. So like it kind of, it does something.
I wanted to make that script. Coming out of USC, I was like, this is my cheap indie movie that I would direct this because it's cheap, you know what I mean? And it ultimately ever just became a writing sample, you know. And that script got the Creed job, you know. And then many years later, it circulated and got on the blacklist. I don't even know how. Right? And then circulated some more, and then we asked our friend, hey, you gonna direct this? She's like, cool. And then we looked up and they was making the shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, shit. Gave her the script, she rewrote it, she just took it and ran with it and ended up making it. You know, and I was like, it's from a writing class. You know what I mean? So you really don't know how a script is gonna, the life cycle of a script. You know what I mean? Because there is no shelf life on it, and it'll keep on percolating in weird ways and getting you just weird opportunities. You know what I mean? So and again, just from a writing class. It's not like I was sitting just rewriting this shit over and over. I only ever wrote 2 drafts of this shit. You know what I'm saying? Like ever. And then from there, the director, she did some drafts. You know what I mean? It's like, but it was enough. It was something in it that people liked in this, this capacity or that capacity. So it's like, you really can't stress enough, like, having more than just one script if you want to be a screenwriter. You know what I'm saying? Particularly if you want to be a screenwriter. Really can't stress it enough because, and the other thing is like, not being, like most of our classmates to this day probably have like 2 or maybe 2 scripts. You know what I mean? And it's like, you just not, it can happen, but you're just putting more pressure on each script to be fucking amazing. You know what I'm saying? And most scripts that anybody write are just not fucking, you know what I mean? Unless you're literally Charlie Kaufman, unless you are in the top 1% of the top 1%, like, they won't all be universally perceived as amazing. Somebody will probably think it's amazing, but they won't all be universally perceived as amazing, no matter who you are. You still gotta find a person who, to Tony's point, connects with the material. Even if someone absolutely loves it, there's still gonna be someone that like passes. Inevitably. You know what I'm saying? No matter what movie you think of, people passed, right? If it ain't James Cameron, somebody probably passed on it, right? And so Martin Scorsese, people passing on for multiple reasons, right? Killers of the Flower Moon, pass, right? And so that was more budgetary, but still, you get the point of making is like, you know, if you spend an inordinate amount of time trying to make something what you deem is perfect, just remember that like it's gonna be passed on by some people. And so it's like, if you take the idea of like, finish a draft, write something else, and like, just make a rule of like, before I rewrite this script, if you have the urge to rewrite it, write another one. Like, skip it. Go, you can come back to it if you wrote something else in between. Because the reason why a lot of our classmates who want to be screenwriters or want to be directors only have 2 or 3 scripts, and they probably fired, but it's because they spent so many times. Like, I'm like, man, I was gonna say something. I got like 20 drafts of a script. You're like, bruh, like, write something else. Like, you know, it's like, it's tired, but it's like, man, you spent 6 years just fucking around with this script. It's like, you can have 10 scripts, 15 scripts, like, you know what I mean? Like, in the time it just took you to write these 20 drafts. And so, you're gonna get much further if you just look at it like, I got 5 scripts. The things that I learned writing the 4th and the 5th script, when I rewrite the 1st script, I promise you, you will do a better job rewriting, having written scripts 2, 3, 4, and 5, than if you immediately try to rewrite script number 1.
We had a professor that said like someone he knew did like wrote 1 page a day, and when you hear that, it's like that's kind of ridiculous. Like you're just writing 1 page a day. But if you think about it, that's like 3 scripts a year, you know. So it's just like if you kind of like put yourself in that mindset of like writing three scripts in a year, like it's a great motivator or goal to make.
Yeah, I mean, shit, write 1 script a year. When you were at college, so for context, I never wrote a script until I was like 24. You know what I'm saying? Never wrote a script. They didn't even know what a script looked like until I was a junior in college. Bam. You know what I'm saying? It's like, that's, I love it look like plays. Like, I wanted to do, I was an art major, I wanted to do video game design. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, just for context, you know what I'm saying? It's like, when I was 27, I had 2 scripts. Like, it wasn't until I graduated USC and literally said, fuck it, we're gonna write a script for each one of these competitions. The Universal, Film Independent, we're gonna write a half hour for the ABC, the 1 hour for the Sundance, we're gonna write a feature for Sundance, Universal Fellowship, we gonna just write scripts for all this shit, and each one gotta be different.
You know, like I need to develop do this. But if you treat it more like building a house, you know, where it's just like, yeah, you're gonna sit down and you're gonna just like, maybe not be like divinely inspired, but just put something on the page. It doesn't even have to be the script, like you can just be stream of conscious notes about what you're thinking about, you know. What you're saying about writing, the other thing that, like, bit of like unasked for advice, but there's other ways, there's other ways to write besides screenplays too, that can all feed into film. Like I love writing short stories, you know, because they're just like, you can get them out really quick, you know, you have an idea or something, you can just write a short story in a week or something, and then you get that sense of accomplishment of finishing something. You know, screenwriting usually takes a while, so that like little bit of dopamine is like delayed for like several months. But short stories are easier to write. And what we found is that we ended up selling a short story. And it became kind of this, we were lucky, right? It became like this bidding war in Hollywood. The reason it became that though is because like, it's not that the short story was any good, like it's actually kind of not, like it's not even a story, it's like the first act of something. But everyone could see, what I was saying earlier about everyone likes to be involved in like the creative process. Like if you give an exec a script, you're saying like this is what the movie is. You know, if you give them something that's not a script, but could serve as IP, so like intellectual property for a script, they can see the movie they like in it, right? Because it's going to be translated into something else. So I say that just being like, even if you're not writing your script, like writing your idea as some other form of writing can not only be beneficial to your own like mental health, but also like feed into your goal later. Yeah, and Hollywood, like, IP is king. Like, it doesn't, that short story they wrote, like, had never been published anywhere, but everyone wanted it just because it had existed in some form other than a script before. And that's like, it makes movies so much easier to make on the exec side. If they can point to, like, this existed as a comic book, as a podcast, as a short story, as a book, or whatever, it greases the wheels to make that be made into a movie. The one reason our post took so long, one of several reasons, was that there was like just some disagreement with what they saw the movie and what we saw the movie, which happens, I think, in every movie, right? The specificity to that with us is that, like, there's notes that make the movie good for the platform and notes that make it good for the story. And like in our minds, those weren't always the same kind of thing. For example, like, because Netflix is a streaming platform and people watch it streaming, you watch movies differently streaming. You know, like, usually your attention's like divided between your phone, or you're getting up, other people in the room, you're eating or something. And most importantly, like, you have the power to like click out anytime you want. If you go to a theater, you spend like $14, $18, like, you're gonna sit through that like slow opening because like you paid 14 or 18 bucks. And so there was a lot of notes that we got from Netflix that weren't necessarily wrong for the platform, but they were wrong for like the story. And so that like battle was like constant.
What's the other part of your question?
I was asking, how did you overcome these obstacles, and how are you able to find compromise while still maintaining your creative vision?
Yeah, I mean, some obstacles you just don't overcome. You know, like, I mean, I guess you call that compromise, right? Like, you know, or if you're a glass half full, you can call it compromise.
Yeah.
Just call it, I lost. But I mean, I think honestly, that's the job. That is, you know, when people ask that question in terms of just like, what do you do? Now I tell them like logistics and management. Like before I would say, oh, I work with the actors and like make the story. And now I say like, I haggle with, I negotiate, you know, because I think that's, you know, there's it's like that. I'm like if you're, you know, trying to go to the atmosphere, the space, it's like Steven Spielberg is in space, Martin Scorsese's in space. I'm like in the ionosphere, like trying to get the fuck out of the atmosphere, right? Like I haven't reached a place, like they don't have to deal with the friction of like going through fucking the atmosphere. They done hit zero gravity, they're chilling. You know, like, and even them, they still got to deal with shit. But like for the mortal directors, you know what I mean? There is, you know, there's always going to be some level of horse trading and negotiating that you have to like just put up with and deal with. You know what I'm saying? That, I mean, it's just inevitable. And so, you know, what ends up happening is like when they for them, I'm sure directing in large part, they'd be like, I got a vision, I execute the vision. I talk to the actors, I talk to the department heads, and like, I command the vision. You do that on set, all good, but like most of the life is like pre-production, haggling for money, like doing that kind of stuff, and it's like a lot of those obstacles are not creative obstacles. In fact, almost none of them are creative obstacles. It's very surprising how similar the directing part is to what we were doing in film school. Like the same shit.
Yeah.
Thankfully, the actors were cool, so it felt the same. You know, they were cool enough that you, like once you kind of get over like this is Jamie Foxx, it's like he's just chilling, so he might look like he's doing a short film.
Yeah.
Like the scene work is easy. You know what I'm saying? And the hard part, it's not easy, but you know, it's like it's normal, not easy but normal. But like what's abnormal and kind of uncomfortable, really uncomfortable, is like, you know, when you like in pre-production and someone's like, cut $1 million out of the budget, figure it out. You're like, you know what I mean? Like it's just like, all right, you know what I mean? You know, and you don't have enough producerial experience to know where it might be best cut. You and different department heads have different things that they're prioritizing, trying to hold on to it. And so it's like, you are really like managing a team and trying to make, me and Tony sitting there trying to like figure out what can we cut out of the scripts, you know what I mean, that we like, that'll get, will that get $1 million? I don't know, shit, you know what I'm saying, like, cause if you cut too much, they'll never give it back. If you condense 2 scenes and you're not happy about it, but you're like, this will cut $1 million, and they're like, it actually cut $3 million. Oh, well shit, let me put it back. They're like, nah, now it's gone, right? So and so like you're dealing with that at the beginning, and that's really the hard obstacle. And I don't know, like again, I don't know if like necessarily overcome it as much, just kind of weather the storm in a lot of ways, because we're learning while we're doing it, you know what I'm saying? Like, how much directing is produced, you know what I mean? How much, I mean, that's one reason we got PGA marks on it, right? Like, there's so little of the process is just that creative part of directing. And so like when you ask like obstacles, I'm not even, you know, I think more in like post of like, okay, now the actual hard part begins, because like you got the movie shot, you're like, okay, I'm like kind of happy with it, sure, you know, it got at least most of what I wanted given the budget and resources that we had to work with. And so you kind of come to peace with what you can't have pre-production. You know, like, okay, that scene's fucked. Like certain things you know before you shoot it, so you kind of internalize it, come to peace with it, do the best you can. And then you're like, all right, well, I got this though, we got this. And then it's like, we need the movie to be like this certain kind of way. And now it's like, oh shit, like, I don't have final cut. Tony ain't got, you know what I mean? Like, we are at the mercy now of the studio up to what, and this happens to so many movies, right? Like you make it and now it's like, I have a very specific idea of what I want it to be like, but they have a very specific idea of like the demographic that they want to appeal to. And those don't overlap all the time. And so, like to Tony's point about making platform decisions versus like story decisions, it's like, you know, a very specific example of like that. Jamie Foxx comes in 7 minutes into the movie. Retention is the big thing, first 10 minutes. But with any streamer, it's gonna be first 10 minutes retention. Don't click out of the movie, because studies have shown that if you watch the first 10 minutes, you're way more likely to finish it, right? And so they're like, well, Jamie's a bigger star, he's gonna be, how quick can we get Jamie? It's like, there's no way to get Jamie faster. But we did many editorial rabbit holes doing shit that we knew wasn't gonna work, because it's like, they want Jamie, how can we get Jamie in the first scene and flash forward? Like, they want to do whatever they can to get you to go, oh, Jamie's in this movie, all right, I'm not gonna click out. And we're like, it's literally just 3 scenes before you see him, like, you know, it's not gonna be that long, you know what I mean? And for them, like to Tony's point, they have the numbers. They know people are gonna click out before 7 minutes. So like, they're not wrong in that sense of like, telling you something that is tech-oriented and platform-centric of like, do you want retention or not? If you want retention, do what we're telling you to do. And like, I don't want retention, I just want the movie to be as close to what we pitched, you know what I'm saying? And so that's the, you know, when you ultimately don't have final cut, you don't have real control, they can hire other editors and do whatever the fuck they want, right? How do you get what you want in that circumstances? And those are really like the obstacles that you're not as much like overcoming them, but it's like learning how to just do the people side of it in that regard, and like, you know, the negotiations, the haggling, and like, when do you threaten them? Like, take my name off this shit. Like, when that is a skill set in and of itself. That again, if you haven't escaped the atmosphere, you have to develop, because they all developed it. Steven Spielberg had to develop it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, Martin Scorsese, they all had to develop this exact skill to get the fuck out of the atmosphere. Right? Because if you don't, like, you're going to director jail at the end of the day. Like, you're probably going to director jail. Right? Or you're going to be relegated to journeyman status, which ain't bad. Better than working at, you know, McDonald's. But if you like really like want to make art or your movie, it's like you have to internalize that like, you're not gonna get to make your movie. You make it. They own the movie, and that's what the money's for, as Don Draper would say, right? And so, you know, the obstacles really are like internally accepting, we said, that which I cannot change. What is that? proper? Help me accept the things I can't change. It's like, you gotta accept that shit. And I think that's the obstacle of like, you're fucking this movie. I mean, you get so angry, you know, and you have to supplement that anger and find a way to go, oh yeah, we don't think about that. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And like try to find out how to give them the same thing, but like 1 degree different, and just mind trick them into thinking, okay, they did the no. It's like that stuff is it's not, again, it's not so much like overcoming it, but it's like that's the learning curve, and that's like what I would say is the true obstacle.
Same way that, like, you know, once upon a time, like TV movies were written differently than a normal movie because they have act breaks. I think like streaming movies need to be written differently than a normal movie for that reason. For the ability to click out, it's so easy. And writing with a partner, it's like every first draft is really a second draft, right? Because like you have to vet every line and every scene and every plot point with someone else. And we argue like all the time on stuff. Like it's not like we're very different.
We argue more often than that.
Yeah, like, there's just some.
Earlier, it's like the scaling up of it is kind of inconsequential to the pure directing part of it. You know, I think it's very similar, very much. I mean, it's the same with more people around, but like it's really, it's like exactly so. Like, it's hard to like probably internalize that without kind of being in that situation. But in my case, I mean, just with a little bit of TV that I've done, and then this movie, and like in both cases, in every case, it was like, you know, just like being on set of film school, you know what I mean? And the real, you know, the real learning curve is whereas, like if I was to shoot something in film school and I gotta go pick up the, you know, oh man, this is labor intensive, I gotta go pick up the gear, cram it in my car, I gotta like call Chipotle or Chick-fil-A or something, y'all got the free chicken sandwich, I got the free burrito, like, I'm kind of putting the producer hat, maybe you get your friend to produce, but it's like the worst kind of producer, like line producers, so no one really wants to do it, so you naturally gonna take a lot of, you know, the producing responsibilities, and so you're like, oh man, this is cumbersome, and then like, you scale up and then like, you don't have to do the grunt work no more, but like, now you have to just, now you're in a meeting from 9 in the morning to like 7 o'clock for 3 months before you shoot it. And it's like, you know, oh, I was working, here's the architectural plans for this room, what color is this wall? Like now you have a, like, such an expanded like managerial like responsibility and logistical responsibility, and you still have to deal with like department heads not getting along, and you know what I mean, like it's still the same, like, you know, the production design, like what the fuck is the prop master doing? Like, what is this prop? This shit don't match, like that, you know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff can happen, or like, you know, money falls, and so like nobody wants to take the hit, the budgetary hit in their department, because it's like, we cut this money out the budget, who's it coming from? It's gonna either take away from the camera package, less lights, it's gonna take away from less paint to put on. Somebody gotta eat it, nobody ever gonna want to eat it. And you have to decide ultimately, like, this is more important to me, this is more important to me, you know what I mean? So it's that's, you know, that's really the difference, but like, I really think like most people, like if they got their hands on like the resources, as long as they had the disposition to like interpersonal skills, I think that most people, you give someone Roger Deakins, if you get your hands on that level of crew, you really don't even have to know what you're doing directly. I'm not kidding. You know what I mean? Like, I swear to God, you can just pluck someone with minimal knowledge and put them into a Marvel setting, and the machine will carry them to the movie getting done at a certain scale. It previz the movie, and not the bigger the movie, the less of that really like hardcore directing, and you have to be responsible for it. It's better if you are, But like, once you have like amazing DPs, amazing centers, they know what to do. You know, actors know what to do. Something, especially when you write the script, like everybody knows what to do. You know what I mean? And so, as long as you are decisive enough to say, oh, I like that, you know what I mean? You can skate in that regard if you want to. And so, it's, I mean, honestly, all of y'all can direct a movie tomorrow if somebody put enough money in your hand. You know what I mean? I'm not saying the movie would be amazing. You might, I'm just saying, like, but you wouldn't be, as long as you fake decisiveness, that's the only thing you have to fake is being decisive. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, you fuck with it? I like the red. Where to put the lights? I'll let you take over. You know what I mean? As long as you can do that, like you can direct. You know what I mean? Like you already probably have plenty of the creative skill set that you need. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
To do it for real.
Yeah, fake it till you make it.
I mean, like there's other like again, there's other things that make movies bad that a great director will navigate that a novice director may not. But again, a lot of that goes into not being on set. Like the on-set part is undoubtedly the easiest part of the process.
Yeah.
Right? Particularly if you like to delegate.
Yeah.
You know, if you delegate, then it'll be even easier.
Yeah.
Because the DP will, if you don't, not good at coming up with shots, a DP will do it for you if you pick that kind of DP. You can do it if you want, or you can delegate it. It's up to you. You know? Like, what Ken say about Woody Allen directing out the trailer?
Yeah, he never released the trailer.
Woody Allen doesn't leave the trailer. And our DP said, like, create your own working environment. He's like, man, you can direct it, do whatever the fuck you want. Like, because he's done a lot of stuff. He did Deadpool and a lot of movies. And a ton of commercials and all kind of stuff. And he was just like, man, like, because, you know, again, it's like that fear of like appearing like you are a director, appearing like, okay, I'm giving the right iconography, the right moments to seem like I'm a director. And it's like, it'd be times I do want to do something my own way. And Ken was like really the one, IDP was like, hey man, they gonna do it however the fuck you want to do it. However you say it's going to go. And it was like, for an example, he's like, Woody Allen don't even direct in person no more. They do the scene, just so you understand how hands off the wheel you can be. He sits in the trailer, watches the scene, walkie-talkies his notes, and the first thing he gets into that. Like you're working with, you know, Woody Harrelson, like they know what to do. You're working with Roger Deakins, he knows what to do.
Yeah.
So, you know, in that regard, you know, I think it's, as with anything, I think the more you work on, as bad, as crazy as it is to say, the more you work on like writing, in all likelihood, unless you're a prodigy as a director, the faster you'll probably get there.